Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I want to talk a little bit about Rhino Linux. This would be version 23.1. That was released on August the 8th. So yeah, again, I'm late, but I take my time and I make sure that I've used it for a while, I played with it for a while, and I've managed to get my benchmarks done. So they classify Rhino Linux as a rolling release. However, there's a number of things that they do, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But the architectures they support is somewhat unique, and I think that really kind of reflects back on what some of the original goals were for the previous version of Rhino Linux. And the architectures they support is x86-64. And then you also have the Pine version of the ARM. It also supports, of course, Raspberry Pi. And they have a note that it supports generic ARM-based computers. We'll be doing some more testing with that. Today, I'm going to be looking at this on the x86. So there's a number of things that come with Rhino Linux. And the first thing you will find is something called Packstall. Packstall is a package manager similar, but it is not the AUR, but it is similar to the way the AUR works. Though there's also a utility that sits over top of all of the package managers, and that's called rhino-pklg. That is a custom package management wrapper. So it's not a package manager, it's a wrapper. It's written in Bash. And it was designed for simplicity so that no matter where your package was, whether it was in an APT or whether it was in Packstall or whether it was in Flatpaks or even snaps, that it would be able to support updating and installing packages from those environments. So it just makes things easier, but don't think of it as here we go again, another package manager, because you can use the other ones, although they don't recommend that. The developers of Rhino Linux would prefer that you use the rhino-pklg. I'm sure they have some really good reasons for that too. The other thing the developers recommend is that you install Nala, N-A-L-A, Nala. And Nala allows for faster downloads, and it has a nicer terminal output so that you can see both what's going on. What do you need to run it on? We're going to take a look at that today when we install it. They don't publish any minimum or recommended system requirements, but we'll take our best guess at that. And there's one of the things that they do is, so this is kind of a snapshot. If you go out and you download an ISO file, you're actually getting a snapshot of the system that occurred whenever that was taken. Now, the latest one that's out there is 2023.1. So the version number is the year, and then what their original intent was, they would release ISO snapshots about 4 times or about once a quarter. But I don't think that's realistic, according to some of the documentation I've read on both their news site and also on their wiki, that seems to suggest that they would kind of prefer to leave that open-ended and release things as necessary. Okay, so the first thing is it is a desktop version of Linux. I did not see the ability to install a server build, but it is a desktop. And what their goal was, they wanted the lightweightness and the speed of XFCE, but they realized that XFCE, like many of us do, really needs an uplift. Yes, you can spend time and you could tediously go and tweak it, make it look the way you want, but that takes a lot of time and effort. And plus, what they were looking for was they wanted the simplicity and the design of GNOME without all the overhead. But they also wanted to incorporate some of the things that Cutefish, which is a now dormant package, brought to the table in the desktop environment. There's this utility that allows you to gather up information about your computer about the devices and memory and graphics and all that wonderful fun stuff, and then displays it in a really nice, as you can see here. The other one is, of course, the Unix, the unicorn, what they call the unicorn desktop. Now, again, that is XFCE, and it has these layers on top of it to make it look nicer. I like the logo, by the way. I think it's really good. It kind of reminds me of Firefox a little bit, and then has the Rhino head. So very well done. So this allows you to move files from one machine to another, and this does encrypt the channel but not the file. So it will encrypt the file as it's being sent over the network. As far as the look and feel is concerned, it looks pretty good. Let's try a couple of other things that I want to look at. First, it's taken about 9 gig of space. Memory, not too bad, about 480 meg, which in this day and age, that's pretty good. Let's take a look at the app caches, about 775 meg. Now, of course, those are fluid, so those get, if you use up that memory, it gets called back. Let's see what the default security is. I haven't added anything to this other than my standard packages. So we got a score of 61. Something must be probably a firewall, maybe. No. Okay, so let's go. We've done that. It's a 61. It's a failing grade. But that's not unusual. There's only been one that has passed, and that is SUSE or OpenSUSE. Let's see. Let's go look at. I just want to see where they're drawing these from. I've heard it's the development library. Yes, it is. It's the development repo. What we're going to do is take a look at the harmonic means. I'm going to kind of go a little bit here and explain. This, first of all, is one of the disk performance tests. These are the megabytes per second. You can see that they're all fairly close, but Rhino is obviously the fastest. It's interesting that Fedora comes in next, followed by Ubuntu, and then Debian, and then Linux Mint. This is the IOPS test, and here we start seeing some pretty large differences in the way the IOPS were felt in the system. And these are measured mostly by FIO, but I think the dbench also comes into play here as well. They don't really tell you that, but yeah, you can see that Linux Mint is the fastest as far as overall disk performance, followed by Rhino, and then Ubuntu, and then Debian, and then finally Fedora. Then we have the harmonic mean of the megabytes per second. Rhino is first, followed closely by Linux Mint, then Debian, and so forth. The geometric mean of all the tests, they don't order them here, but it's pretty clear that Rhino was first in this one. Apparently this does not sort the order, so. This is the CPU massive test. These are the benchmarks that actually measure performance of the CPU under load. They're all pretty identical. I mean, there's very little difference between them. This is relative performance. The one it picked is kind of the one in the 1.0 was Ubuntu, and then measured a 2% faster CPU test on Rhino. So it's not a lot, right? Geometric mean, same thing here. Fedora was picked as of the disk. It was 1, but if you want to know how fast Rhino is, it's 2.3 times faster than Fedora. Ubuntu is 2.1 times faster. Debian 2 times faster. This is all being tested on the same machine, the same hardware, and the same NVMe drive. Common kernel benchmark tests. So you can see here that we have about about 11% lead by Rhino over Debian. So yeah, it's pretty good. This one is about a 1.4% lead, so not very much. That probably would be in the noise. This one would be in the noise. This is the server tests, server CPU tests. Not much difference here, about a 1% difference between the top and the bottom performer. Single-threaded tests, 3.7% lead by Rhino over Ubuntu this time. So the first place finishes that we have in this one, there was a total of 59 tests this time. Rhino had top slots in 28 of the 59, followed by Debian with 20. Last place finishes, Fedora had almost 35 looks like. 35 of them. So yeah, quite significant. Over 55% of the tests, they were last. We've had a chance to kind of look at Rhino Linux, what it's all about and what it's doing. I think one of the goals that I remember for Rhino Linux was it was meant to be able to provide an alternative Linux for particularly the Pine versions of the ARM boards. But they also have x86 and AMD 60. They support both the Intel and AMD platforms, obviously. So you can install this on a standard x86 platform and it will run. I mean, I'm doing it, and so it runs fine. I have run into some issues with the display drivers because they're going through a layer on the VM. So I have seen some quirkiness there. I have not tried this on hardware. Maybe I should go do that and see if maybe it's a little less or a little more quirky. I don't think so, but I'll try it and we'll see what happens. But is it any good? Well, my only worry with this is the fact that it's a rolling release. Pulling from the I mean, you got to find a place where people are changing things. And yes, you would definitely find a lot of changes in the developer releases. One thing that I always find is kind of curious about Ubuntu and Fedora is they both update like crazy. I mean, Glacial doesn't even begin to describe Debian's pace of updates. They only update whenever there's security patches, so it takes a while before Debian you'll actually see any kind of massive update. Now, occasionally you will, because Debian does bump their baseline occasionally, and so you'll see pretty large updates when that occurs, but normally you won't see it at the same pace as Fedora or Ubuntu. Yeah, so if you're interested in this and you want a desktop that has some very unique approaches to solving problems, take a look at Rhino Linux. As far as the performance of it is concerned, it's quite good. But just remember that the margins are very slight in between some of these. You're only talking 1 to 2% faster on most of them. Some exceptions to that, of course. So I will also leave you at the end of this the detail for the benchmarks. But anyway, I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you to my Patreons and thank you to my channel members. I sure appreciate your support. It helps me a lot. And if you got this far in the video, thank you as well for watching. Please share this. Hope to see you in the next video. Take care and bye for now.